It being 6 p.m. or thereabouts, I'm going to start the Finance Committee meeting tonight. We have, looks like 4 of us in attendance and 1 or 2 on the Zoom meeting. So we definitely have a quorum. Since we have 2 online, we better do a who's here. Kyle Pike here.
Dave Fuller here.
Michael Coward here.
Marcia Meekins here.
Hi,
You're not
Debbie.
here.
I'm sorry, Debbie Moran here.
Okay. And do we have Derek? Okay. I guess the first thing I would say is, does anybody have a public comment they want to make before we get started? Seeing none, we will go forward. The water department, who is it? It's streets and parks and solid waste that we wanted to get in first. All right. The Derek was the one that we had assigned to do solid waste, streets, trees, and parks. Since I don't see him online, why don't the people sit up at the table here if you'd like?
Yeah, that's.
I guess that I will lead the questions and answers here since I spent a little bit of time looking at the budgets.
When you starting with, Carl?
Let's do solid waste first.
Okay.
Okay. My notes here when I looked at the solid waste budget was that in 2024, we spent $707K. 2025, we had a budget of $812K. This year, we have a budget of $802K that after it has been reduced by looks like about $30K by the town administrator on his review of the budget. I asked for the actuals that are on the sheet that's attached tonight. We have the current year budget analysis because I wanted to see where they stand on a half-year basis. Solid waste disposal. Actual is 369 out of a revised budget of 812, so they're in good shape from that point of view. It looks like the rubbish removal, which I believe is the contract, that's the contract, isn't it?
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is less than 50%, but the of the budget, but the recycling is much more. So it's 205K out of 460. So it looks to me like you're in good shape. Sometimes my experience is that the invoices may be running a month behind too. Okay. And
Just so you know.
the it looks to me like the overtime is where the reduction came from. Now, is that an overtime reduction you guys came up with, or is that one that the town administrator put on you?
If I could just jump in real quick. So with the help of Lynn and Sean, we talked about some different options for the solid waste department, and the overtime reductions are twofold. Right now, what I've included in the budget as part of my cuts, or I guess I haven't included in the budget because of my cuts, is the elimination of Monday nights. They're open 3 extra hours on Monday evenings. We're proposing to eliminate that because there's not a tremendous amount of traffic at the transfer station on Monday nights. And we're working towards having an online software for people to apply for and receive their transfer station decal rather than having to go to the building itself on the days that we're open and the weekends that we're open for a short period of time in the spring when we offer the permit. So there's some overtime savings there as well.
Okay. I see my second note was the clerical union for 11K. What is that for when we use somebody part-time for selling stickers? Traditionally, what we pay for there?
Yes, it is.
Okay. The labor union, 214K. What's the head count? How many people are in that 214K?
It's three
Three.
employees, yeah, a foreman and 2 operators.
The only other thing I noticed was that it looks like it's just the way we're budgeting or reclassification. That if I put recycling and rubbish removal together, for 24, it was 396K, for 25, 460K, and for 26, 460K. If I remember correctly, that was a new contract.
Well, what it was too is, they were combining the, C&D in with the rubbish. And that's why last year it was higher, the cost of the C&D disposal. So really, the C&D should be under recycling. Rubbish should be rubbish only.
Okay.
So the rubbish cost you see that's contractual with CMAS. And we moved the C&D into the recycling. So that's why those numbers, they're close to the previous year, but it's why they changed so much, flip-flop.
And how many years do we have left on the CMAS contract?
3 out till 29, 3 more.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so that's good. At least we have that fixed.
Yeah.
All right. Those are the only comments or questions that I had on this department. I'll open it up to fellow members here. Do you have any other questions or comments?
Go ahead.
So just clarity.
I'm sorry, can I just add, so that the board of selectmen discussed in a budget meeting last night, I just want to make sure you guys are aware of some of the discussion that occurred last night. So one of the things that was discussed last night was trying to restore some of the funding for the police and fire departments. And what were there ways to potentially either shift funding that's been suggested for the departments in the budget I presented, or are there potentially estimated revenues that we could adjust to make up some or all of the $380,000 that the board is looking for to fund in police and fire. One of the things that it's been talked about here off and on for a while, and I just threw some numbers together with the help of Sean, was and it's a decision the board has not made yet, frankly. Does the board want to look at rather than partially offsetting the operations of the transfer station with user fees, ticket or decal sales? Do we look at either increasing the cost of those decals to subsidize more of the cost of the transfer station, or even how much would it cost to have the transfer station be self-sustaining? What it meant was the decal costs, the biggest hit would be the individual first decal for the household. And you can't quote me this, but I think it went from 250 to 350 or 240 to 350.
240,
240 to 350. There was some additional costs associated with the second decal, a recycling decal only, things of that nature. I did not touch the fees associated with residents. I think it's 62 and older. So we get discounted rates.
We need those discounted rates. as a
I understand
team.
that. And
We have a lot of trash.
I sympathize with Mr. Pike, and I expected that might be the only smile I got tonight. So I wanted to get out of the way early. So the board had some discussion about that. Wasn't sure if it made sense to look at phasing that in rather than having one large increase with the way it was discussed. What we did, like I said, is we have tried to identify local revenues that we could increase the estimates on. In the transfer station, we used an increase in the decal fees of $20. So it'd be similar to the small increases like there has been typically for the past several years, every other year, for transfer station decals. And we found some other miscellaneous revenues, local revenues that we can adjust, as well as bumping the state revenues to announce 2.2% increase. Those state revenues will increase by with the government. The cherry sheet has not come out yet. Hopefully it will come out tomorrow. They did release, I'm going off on a tangent, so I apologize. They did release some of the school revenues that the state provides, which was very hopeful. If they come in and what they would propose to come in, pretty significant increase in the Chapter 70 money. But I just wanted to make sure I apologize.
Yeah,
for
no problem.
Going off on a tangent.
At this time, though, that this budget is the official budget right now. With solid waste. So, does anybody else on the committee have any questions, concerns?
Keith, can I ask you a quick question about the numbers you were throwing together? So you said to go to true cost per user was to go from 240 roughly to
220
about,
to 350 for the first decal in house.
oh, all right, I'll leave that there.
I'm pleasantly surprised at that number because, to me, we are probably slightly over 50% right now that's funded via the stickers.
That's less than that.
Huh?
I don't need to correct you, but I think it's less than that. It's about 500,000. We're short like 500,000, I think.
No.
No.
No. 200.
I'm sorry.
Stickers made up.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah.
No, it was
been a long
500, it was
day.
about 525 from sticker sales. Right, and
The
the
overall
overall
budget
budget was 8.
802.
802.
Okay.
I
So,
apologize.
But
so
in
it's
any case-
self-funded, we can make up 200K.
Yes.
And I'm sure some people at this table remember, this gets talked about at least every third year. That do we have it 100% payable?
Yes.
So that your rates, or do we do away with it and everybody has to have their private pickups? And then, since I've been in town for almost 20 years, we go back to having it 50, 60% covered by the sticker prices.
I guess the thing that makes me a little more optimistic about that is just that my impression is that that would still be competitive against private hauling service rates,
Right.
which.
Oh, it's still significantly
Yeah,
low.
yeah, exactly.
Private hauler rates are anywhere from 600 to 700.
That's what I
A
think,
year?
Yeah, exactly.
So even at looking at 350, it's still half the price.
Of course, what you always hear, and I'm sure you'll hear it from the Board of Selectmen if you didn't hear it last night. Well, if we force everybody to go private, we'll have more tires and more pieces of furniture out in the woods and everywhere.
That's why we have a police chief.
Yeah.
Figure that out.
Okay, can I have a
Questions?
motion?
No questions.
Oh, I have a question.
Question.
What is this recurring? It looks like I've got a $23,000 engineering.
So we have to monitor
The scales and
the old landfill. And I think the scale that we use at the transfer station to weigh trucks that come in that pay by the pound.
Yeah, most of that is for the fees for an engineer for the
Mhm.
old landfill. They have to come in so many times a year and monitor it.
Like groundwater
All the
monitoring,
gases and-
gas.
yeah.
Is it capped right now?
Yes.
Yeah, oh,
Is that with
yes.
the dog? Is that?
Yeah.
It's
Where
part
the
of the
dog
dog,
park is.
it's also where you notice the big solar array up there now.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
That's the majority of it.
All right. And does that go out? Is that just a competitively bid position? Or is that a town?
It's
How do
a,
we get that?
we use the same engineering company that
Since it was capped.
designed cap it, so it's.
Yeah.
No, we don't go out to bid.
No.
We don't need to, and I think to have the continuity of the same engineering firm, I think it makes sense to keep them over using.
Okay, and the decals, just to go back to if it became a self-sustaining department, it would be $350 for the first household. If we assuming
I
the
mean, that
same
was
number.
the idea of the numbers they come up with. It doesn't have to. I mean, that was leaving the seniors 62 to and plus
At that
alone.
special low rate.
I mean,
right.
you could do anything. You know,
There's.
you could go
6 or 7
325
different types of fees that we charge.
and you could go up
You're
a
right,
little
yeah.
bit on the seniors, but not a significant amount, you know. But
Would you be worried that people would not bring their trash to the?
What would the alternative?
the alternative is going to curbside and
That's very.
it's almost double the money
I agree.
and you can't get rid of most of the stuff you can at the transfer station.
And for $350 a year, you can bring unlimited amounts of trash,
Yes.
a household,
Yes.
which I find just breathtakingly generous. I'll be honest with you.
We accept
Um,
donations.
I'm just saying. I mean, I lived in Vermont for many, many years and, you know, we paid by the weight,
Right.
how much you
Okay.
brought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was.
Okay, is there any other questions?
No, I don't have any other
All right.
questions. I think that's a great idea.
So contract through 2029, does that contract include rubbish and recycling? Is that
CMS is all trash.
That's just the one through to 29 through CMAS,
just the
just
trash?
CMAS, that's just
Right.
rubbish.
Right.
Okay,
Then we're hearing after 29 in Keithsford too, it's
We're paying significantly under.
Pretty
market
substantial.
Per ton.
after
Okay.
29.
so that's just the household waste. When I'm a user, right?
Mhm.
So when I go, that's the household waste.
Yes,
So hard plastic, paper, cardboard, C&D, metal, that's all under this recycling line item?
that's all under
Yeah.
recycling, yes. Also the
And-
oil, when
Okay,
they pump out the oil.
Mhm.
and we have a contract to remove that stuff? How does that work?
We haul it.
We haul it.
We haul it.
So it's we haul it to certain vendors.
We
We
haul
have a
it.
contract with vendors.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We
so we
take, we
do.
take the container that the demolition material, for example.
Mhm.
We have a contract with a company.
Yeah.
We deliver that demolition material to that company for a ton cost.
I thought I've seen someone come pick something up.
Mattresses,
Maybe mattresses, we fill a container, they come.
complete recycling.
Okay.
If not, you have the big trailers there that are
Yep.
with TVs and fridges.
Yeah, those are-
But once those get filled, they'll come.
all the other
off
stuff
the
we haul
trailer.
out.
Everything else, as far
Right.
as what you were talking, we haul it out with our own truck, our own
Okay.
guys.
All right. No, I don't have anything else.
Mike, are you good?
Your promotion?
I'm ready.
Right, we're just doing one number this year, right?
Yes.
All right,
So I'm, yeah, that's all right, right? Kathleen?
Yeah.
We don't have any, see, we used to always have subtotals. So we would do it so much for labor
Personal
and so much for
services.
expenses, but I'm very happy to just do the bottom line.
cool. I move the finance committee recommend favorable action on the 2026 solid waste budget in the amount of $802,543.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Kyle, aye.
Michael, I.
David, aye.
Marcia, I.
David, aye.
Debbie, I.
We accept the budget and recommend approval of the $802,543. Now we'll look at the streets, trees and parks. Would anybody else like to start off on this one, or do you want me to start again? Mike, or,
No, not the bill.
yeah,
Go ahead. Actually, a bunch of my stuff, Carl, was year to date, year to date, year to date, year to date.
okay.
Like we used this updated thing a couple hours ago.
In fact, I must admit, I did a lot of my analysis today, and that's when I requested that we get this. Okay, to get started, street trees and parks for 24 spent $1,225,000. The 25 budget was $1,358,000, and the 2026 budget is $1,426,000 of a 3.9% increase bottom line. Wage and personnel amount is $166,000, and that was increased by 25K by the town administrator. I wonder if that's with the thought of maybe for a director of public works.
Yes, sir. So at this point, they're reviewing, it's a subcommittee, a working group is reviewing that. So I wanted to include, the rate adjustment that will be needed, at least in my estimation, a rough idea of what the cost would be for, to have that position included in the budget. If it's not supported, then that $25,000 can be reduced.
Okay. The next one, the clerical union, that's the administrative person there. No problem that I see. Labor union, $692,000. Again, what's the head count on that one?
Ten.
That would be,
That's 10 employees.
that would be yourself and 9 others,
Yes, it is.
correct?
Yep.
Actually, it must, you'd be in the wage and personnel, no?
No, we kept them in the union.
Okay.
Yep.
And so the wage and personnel is for the position that we're going to fill eventually.
That's what, yeah, currently now 10 without, with
Okay.
that position would be 11.
So then it becomes 11.
Yes.
And the overtime of 26K, is that mostly for plowing, or do we use overtime for other things?
It's overtime for other things. The plowing would all be covered under snow and ice,
Okay,
the snow and ice budget.
okay. And when do we need overtime for these people?
Well, it would be anything if we get calls from police during storms, flooded roads, trees down. I'll get calls on the weekends if there's a dead deer on the road, animal pickup. That's what that gets used for.
That looks like it's been running about $20,000, $25,000
Yes.
a year. Okay.
A pretty good jump in that for this year.
Yeah, they're doing 9 so far, almost 10 this year so far.
What are you talking about?
So
Overtime.
the 25 budget was 20.6, 26 recommendations, almost 26,
What's the actual running at?
98.
98.
Do you have a sense for what's driving that?
It's just the one extra, we didn't have that extra person. We filled it now this year. Plus with everybody's steps. Almost every single one of our employees has got a step.
Right.
There's only, I think, 2 people that are maxed out, but they'll still get their COLA. So the steps in the COLA just is what added that more of the overtime to cover them.
Okay.
Just cover the higher wages.
Do we have any concerns about some of these line items? For example, and it cuts off, so I can't read the whole thing. So like contract P,
That's
right?
paving. Yep,
Say it again,
paving,
paving.
contract.
Oh,
paving.
Jesus. Wow, I hit it right on the head, all right. Jeez.
They're not spending enough money on it, right?
So we're budgeted 60 or 36 year-to-date, we're at 63.
Oh, if you're looking at the 36, I'm sorry,
That's contract paint.
that's painting.
Painting,
Painting.
okay.
Yep.
So we're double our budget in 25 already.
Mhm.
And how do we manage that?
That's because I think the previous superintendent had the parking lots done. All the town parking lots, which we usually don't do every year,
Okay,
and that's what happened. It ran over.
So that, I apologize, but I don't have any. So I-
Usually the contract painting, if you look back, it's
Oh.
usually about that 37,000.
so we budgeted 36,
We spent 50, 60.
63.
Other places.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
which,
So I want to make sure going forward, we're okay.
and to answer as good as I can, that was before.
Blame it on the other guy.
Well,
I got it,
you know.
I got it.
It's my best answer I can give you.
Don't worry, don't worry.
What's the next line, the contract?
Contract R, yeah.
School zones, striping up and.
Well, a few of it did.
We do all,
A few of them
yeah,
did.
it's all included.
And there was an extra crosswalk added,
Yep.
and then all the parking lots
Right.
on town buildings were done, which those are usually done every 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And this year was the year to do them.
All right, and then the very next line item, contract R.
I don't know which one.
That's the big one. That must be the.
That's the one. Yes,
That's
I'm
gotta
sorry.
be-
Contract resurfacing.
So we're at 124, we went up to 125 for 25.
No,
No.
should be 175.
Or 175.
That hasn't moved in
Yeah.
2 years.
175, excuse me.
Yep.
But year to date, we're only at 17.
Some of that, yeah, we still have more to do. for
Does
the
that
roads.
lag into spring then?
Is it?
Yeah,
Once I start in the spring, right now, I have, that I know of, I have about $75,000 worth of seal coating I have to do. And then what I have left with that, I will do paving with.
Is any of that the Route 3 sewer project? No, that's all.
No, that's all
The state.
whoever
That's all
on their project,
state. Okay.
whether it was sewer or water, and that's a state road anyways.
Right.
Okay.
Still water
And it would be that- I would assume that it would be that account that they'll have to underspend. to
Yes.
Offset.
yes.
Yeah.
You know, that line item is supplemented by chapter 90. State road paving.
Yep.
We haven't got that number yet. Last year was 5, something like
I
that.
say it runs
Yeah.
500,000.
I've heard rumors that it may go up as much as double. We'll find out in the next couple of days.
Which that would be nice, because
Yes, we have behind.
that doesn't get us very far on paving a roadway.
Yeah. All right, how about truck repair?
Oh. What would you like to know? We're still repairing our 25-year-old trucks.
So
And
we budgeted 20, you've already spent 38
Budget 12.
or 12, excuse me.
yeah.
The lines don't line up
It's hard.
between my two. Okay. So I'm thinking of the capital budget.
So we've ordered.
We've ordered them.
We ordered trucks. We have not received those trucks. yet.
What do we get?
I talked to our dealer the other day, and he's still telling me still another 12 to 18 months before I'll see him. So, and that's why I tried to move that up a little bit, because I still have to Band-Aid and repair these 25-year-old trucks to possibly get me through another winter. Yeah, I got one that's a 99, I got one that's a
So is our
2000.
20 sufficient, or are you gonna find it as you go?
You know, it's frankly, it's hit or miss, right? I don't know what the repairs are going to be. For the upcoming year, we may be good with 20, we may need 30.
It's hard to, it's really hard to project. This year, obviously, as you can see so far, it's been quite a few repairs.
You?
The age of the vehicle.
That's the type.
And the age of the vehicle and the availability of the parts, now we're finding that parts are obsolete now,
Yeah.
and I can't just park them. I
That's the
need them.
type of thing that I would just prefer that it be in the finance meeting notes, that we noted that $20,000 could be possibly light, but that we don't want to take any budget action at this time to increase it based upon other problems.
Which
Yeah.
problems?
Fire,
The
police,
other
and
problem.
schools.
What is the line ahead of that? Is it police detail?
Mhm.
It's got 15,000.
Yeah.
We've already spent 14.
Mhm.
What is that? What's that for?
That's for anything I do.
Right. out in the
Any of my
rain.
jobs, I have to get a police detail.
So we're
So,
paying the police department.
yeah, so anything I do, when I'm paving, when I'm, anything, tree cutting, I have to have a police detail. And last year, they raised the rates for at least
Yeah.
special ops from 30 to 70 an hour.
Our police department.
And then our
There's
regular
a discount
offices,
for the town.
our regular offices now used to be anything over 4 was hour for hour. Now, anything over 4, we have to pay them 8.
Right.
So that's why I looked to increase it a little
Is
bit.
that the union? Is that change and
It's
4
another
to 8.
example of why it's very expensive to live in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Because all our liberals have these flying laws and rules and regulations that you go to other states and you'll see, you know,
Flagman.
a flagman standing.
Yeah.
They charge about
Carla's not kidding, by the way. We are the only
They
state in
have-
America that requires uniformed officer details.
It's kind of like the
Well,
only
I'm not
state in
putting that
America
method.
that
You
provides
have to offer the details. to the
Shelter.
uniformed
All our
officer,
guys-
Which is like
shelter laws.
other states, you
Yeah.
will see flaggers.
6 out of our 9 guys are certified flaggers.
Oh,
But that's
That's
in case the police officers can't fill our details.
We have backup.
So we have backup.
Yep.
I cannot just throw them out on the road even though they're certified.
Right.
Because we have to offer it to the police first.
What's the notice you have to give? You have to give a certain notice to the police?
They have so many hours to call them.
They have to call and let us know. Well, I have to let them know
Yeah, you post.
about 9
detail,
AM
then
the
they-
day
they bid
before.
on it.
We send.
Then I'll have a detail. So if
24
I,
hours.
just about 24 hours.
Then it goes out to other towns too, right? Like if they can't fill it, does it, other towns
Well,
pick it up?
depends.
What other
All right.
towns?
We've gotten.
Yeah,
like
like-
sheriffs.
Yeah, cause they, yeah,
Right.
Carver Sheriff,
okay, sorry.
and everybody
Alright,
pays about the
I'll get
same.
that scab.
You paid 40, all the other towns pay 75, you'd never get a copy.
Deb, you got anything?
I was just wondering if we could adopt the department recommendation over the town administrators as it's a little bit cheaper.
Yes, I see that.
That puts us,
Where
I
was the
mean,
difference?
the
Difference.
Wage and personnel?
Wage and
Ways
personnel.
and personnel.
Oh, we have to
I
go
assume the
back to that.
concern is the risk of not being able to fill that with the demanded candidate.
Yeah.
I know the answer before I asked this. You don't think there's any play in that number, do you?
What would the position be directing? I mean,
They'd be directing all of the streets, and parks, transfer station, the water department, the day-to-day operations, of the water department, the sewer department,
And probably facilities.
and facilities.
but I thought I heard you say at the select board meeting last night that there would be parts of the water department and sewer department that would survive.
Sure, and the departments themselves would survive as they exist today, staffing wise. The oversight and the day-to-day responsibilities of operating that water sewer falls to the public works director rather than the water and sewer commissioners.
And so we would just eliminate the water and sewer
We would
commissioners?
not eliminate them, we would reduce their responsibilities from managing the day-to-day operations and direct oversight of the superintendent to setting policies and allowing the public works director to work with and direct the water and sewer departments as necessary.
Do you foresee any cost savings in that to the
As I mentioned
town?
last night, I do.
But I mean, do we have any
I
quantifiable?
So I don't have any quantifiable cost savings that are included in this budget. But I think there's opportunities to reduce some of the costs that we incur right now from outside vendors. Can I tell you exactly what that is? I think it's on. If this happens a year from now, it absolutely is.
It's just sort of hard to include, the line item addition is what, $25,000?
Okay, I would ask if either Deb or Marcia, want to make a motion to reduce the 165,727 back to the 140,727, and we'll vote on it as a committee.
But can you explain the pros and the cons in the future of doing so? So let's say it does pass, and now we need the 25, then what has to happen?
25 disappears somewhere else, right?
Right.
Nothing somewhere else.
That's why I personally am not in favor of making any reduction like that.
I know.
But I wanted to give the committee the option if they want to do it. To me, there's always the risk when you're adjusting a budget down that, you'll be out there hung out to dry, that, the money's not there to do something.
I'm happy to accept an amendment. I'm gonna move that the committee recommend the town administrator's number for streets, trees and parks fiscal 26 at $1,426,137.
Second.
I'm happy for there to be amendments offered to that, but I figure we should start there.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I would like to know more about this prospective new position before I vote to fund.
So it's under positions.
It sounds new. You're shaking new. Okay.
It's we're upgrading the current position of streets, trees and parks superintendent to a public works director, expanding their responsibilities to include the oversight and management of the water and sewer departments, as well as facilities, to streamline, in my humble opinion, areas and the operations of all of those departments that aren't able to be streamlined as well as they could be, because there's so many, there are other individuals or boards or commissions that operate the water and sewer commissions. And with having this all under one person, I believe it'll be a better, more functional.
The way I would look at it is that specifically the water and wastewater departments, they have superintendents for both functions, but then they have commissioners who are elected, and it's in effect a very part-time job to oversee the whole thing. I kind of like the idea of having a professional to be overseeing the operations of those departments, coordinating that, all of the departments maybe are working on the same wavelength, et cetera.
I couldn't agree with you more. I really love the idea. But when we are scraping to keep the boat afloat, so to speak, I mean, that's what it sounded at last night's meeting, in terms of looking to find like 200 and something thousand additional dollars so we don't cut public safety, fire and police. I'm just saying, if we've hobbled along this long with the structure we have in place, because it sounds to me like we're only adding $25,000 to this line item in the budget. That's clearly not enough to pay a director of public works. $25,000?
Well, the point is,
No, it's on top of what
the
was.
position is vacant.
Okay,
now.
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
we're adding, so
So that
we're adding to, because
The superintendent,
I'm
the
confused.
existing position in place, it's currently vacant. The estimated, the budget requested for fiscal 26 was $140,757. To make sure there were funds in the street and parks budget to properly fund a public works director position, I proposed to add $25,000 to that to make it $165,700 for that position. So I did increase it by $25,000, but I added to the existing number that the street trees and parks superintendent position will be eliminated if this proposal is forward.
and that position is currently vacant.
Yes.
And is that the position that was occupied by, his name is Mr. Barrett?
Basil.
Bassler.
Yeah.
That's-
Mhm.
okay.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the table, so let's vote. And then remember, the motion is to accept the budget of $1,426,137 as submitted by the town administrator. And I will point out that that is a budget increase of 3.9% within our 4% target.
Can I have one more thing? So the 25, just so we're clear, I think about 10 of the 25, if I'm reading these numbers right, is offset elsewhere. Right? You made a couple of smaller reductions. Because if I,
We made some reductions within that department. That
Right.
Were very candidly, were recommended by John.
Okay.
And it had nothing, and those cuts weren't made because I was trying to keep the street schools and parks budget below 4% while adding 25,000 for the department position.
Yeah, the bottom line increase is only 16.
Okay.
Okay, one more time. Can we
And-
vote on this one?
And it's clear that you're going to eliminate Mr. Bassler's position. Okay.
Only if-
If this is approved. by
Only if
town
this is
meeting,
approved,
yes,
but we're not going to have a new position plus the old.
No, we're either, so.
They don't have the funding for it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
The two options for this are, if it doesn't get support from the committee that we're looking at now, or it doesn't get support by the board of selectmen, and doesn't get support at town meeting to fund this position and the changes in the bylaw that would be required, then it would fail and the superintendent position would be passed to be a motion made to reduce the budget by $25,000. And we would remain with a superintendent.
Carl, yes.
Michael, yes.
Marcia, yes.
David, yes.
Debbie, yes.
The budget as established is recommended for approval 500. The next,
That's a quick clarifying question, because I'm having trouble getting something to line up. In our binders, right? As opposed to what we were given tonight.
the reason we were given something tonight was just to include an actuals column.
But it takes away the department budget
Yep.
isn't in
Isn't
the
in there,
report you got
yeah.
today.
Right.
So your percentages are off because it's going back to 25 rather than
See here.
the other things.
No. So, but in the
So
book,
confusing.
the percentage change is based on the department requests. And in the new packet, which is probably more useful, the percentage change is based on the town administrator's request. I can't reconcile it any other way.
That's, so yes, so there are about the 25, and I'm just using our wage and personnel line item. There's 140,000 proposed,
Yeah.
25, there's 140,000 proposed in 26 department. There's no increased percentage change. So I would agree that's what.
So okay, fine. Let's, thank you.
Okay? We did that. Now let's go to the water department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Bye.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
We're not having Paul here for this.
Stay with
Paul's not disappointed.
I have no doubt.
I don't believe.
Transportation on Saturday.
I talked to him on Monday. Okay, the water department. David, you want to take the lead for water and wastewater?
Sure. Water department. We need more of it. And fast.
Doing the best I can.
But we do the best we can. So, yeah, we met earlier today. Actually, I think I was on water last year too. So, we did catch the overtime snafu. That's in the book. That's updated by the sheets.
Yep.
Yes.
And then everything else, well, a lot of the questions I had, I think you'll similarly have had to do with where we at year to date. And now we have those numbers. So if you look at this budget, right, there's no new employees. There's not much change, year over year. Their number one expense is electricity, followed by, treatment, which is essentially the chemicals to treat the water. And yeah, other than that, I didn't see too much. The one thing was, where was backhoe? You'll see this line item for equipment lease towards the bottom. FY 24 was 25 grand. Placeholder for 25 for 75, and then we're doing 75 again. And I asked about that, and I was reminded, they have an aging backhoe, and she could give way at any time. And if she does, we need to lease a new backhoe. So that placeholder is there for that. And
Do you have it in your capital
Yes.
project?
Also, the equipment lease, we pay for the well cleaning stuff out of that also. We don't use it for the backhoe. So that money does get reallocated for well cleaning and tank maintenance.
yeah, and one of the things that did make sense is I said, well, hold on. I got a backhoe down at the transfer station that you can go use. And I was reminded, well, do you really want the transfer station backhoe digging around your water?
Probably.
Probably contaminated. And then, yeah, that's probably a good thing that we don't do that. And the water department one has some different attachments and specializations that the one at the transfer station doesn't have. It just has that one bucket. So I asked about that. But other than that, I didn't have too much else. I'm looking at the year-to-dates now that I have them. Talk to me about contract R. We did 3,424, allotted 10 grand for 25. Year to date, we're at 0.
Contract.
That would be line item number 52252.
Contract resurfacing,
Yeah.
52252.
Yeah,
So year to date, we've used this. Just looking at this.
unless I was looking at the wrong lines.
It's, no, I have the same thing. dude.
Same thing, 0 year to date. Are you gonna do, yeah, I mean, just
Saving the money for the spring.
spring, I would assume.
No, that money is a separate contract with the opera funds that we've got. So that's for contract resurfacing. If we do, like in the spring, all the repairs that we've done in the fall, and then we'll have an infrared company come in, contract, and they come in and they heat up the spots so we get paid, do a better, more permanent repair. As opposed to right now, because right now, if we do anything, it has to be with cold patch instead of hot asphalt, but some of the hot asphalt stuff is settled, so we have a company comes in and they heat it up, resurface it in that one area.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, your number one budget item is electricity. Is there anything we can do to remind me? Are we on just a variable rate? Are we on a set plan?
I think we're on that, correct me if I'm wrong, if we're on the town rates there with all that,
So
so.
we're locked?
We are. Yeah, we're not locked in yet. Current contract for electricity expires, I believe, June 30 of this year, and we've been watching the market, frankly, because right now the rates are a little bit higher than what they've been.
Okay.
And we're trying to find that sweet spot to lock in with.
And can we offset townwide electricity in any way through solar projects, or are we like capped out? Are we only allowed to put so much into the grid?
I don't have a great answer for you. I'm sorry. I mean, certainly if the grid can accept more solar, if there was a space that is that, we'd be interested. We had companies come in looking at solar on the roof of this building, for example. We talked about if the police department gets instructed putting solar on the roof of that building. but there hasn't been any real interest from some companies that are constructing solar to look at the building, looking at the buildings I just mentioned. So
We have big solar arrays on our treatment plants. They're large roofs and we got as many panels in there as we can. For solar power coming back into the grid, so.
and money goes some, and that money goes against or is a revenue for the water fund in this case.
Okay. All right.
Okay, the only question I had is the head count. What do we have? We have the superintendent and administrative assistant and a part-time administrative assistant.
Correct.
Right? What do we have for workers?
We have five workers. We have a foreman, treatment plant operator, and then 3 pump operators. And those are the guidelines set forth by the DEP for staff levels.
Okay.
I just have a question about the labs. It looks like there's a big jump there.
The jump on that is due to the PFAS testing that's required by the DEP for quarterly testing and monitoring on that. Those tests are very expensive. They're about $2,500 per round of samples that we need to do. We have 6 wells that need to be done at least twice a year. And then that also covers all of our other quarterly sampling for DEP and monthly bacteria sampling that we conduct.
And how about revenue? You know that we had what was it, back in November, a rate increase
Yes.
for fiscal year that's gonna end June 30th, the current year we're in. Yeah, we looking okay with that current revenue stream?
Yes, yeah, that was based under the guidance of the town administrator and finance director for those rate increases. Looks like it'll be like a total finish break even with this past fiscal year, will put us in a better position going forward.
Okay, so with those rates, we're comfortable for the FY 26
Yes,
budget that we're doing here. Now, my recollection on the water rates here, we try not to change them or increase them more than once every 5-6 years, maybe. Has that been kind of the history?
the water rates haven't gone up for a substantial length of time,
Yeah,
a long period of time. With the last rate adjustments we did, we really evaluated and compared it to surrounding communities that have what their rates are, what their rate structure is, and realized that we're significantly undercharging compared to what the average rates are, the surrounding communities. So we're back right in line with the
and
surrounding
you're
communities.
somewhat dependent upon the volume. If I have a very dry summer and use a lot of water to water my lawn, or I have a wet summer and I don't use any water,
Well,
that impacts you, doesn't it?
we kind of gear things that we want people to conserve water. So it's the less you use, the less you're gonna pay, the more you use, the more you're gonna pay. And with this new rate structure, instead of having the 7-tiered rate structure, we've gone down to a 4-tiered rate structure.
God forbid, should you be on sewer like I am, you can pay for it twice.
That's with the other department. I deal with the in, not the out.
Will the water department become like a self-sustaining department with the new rate increases?
I'll interrupt
Oh,
you
okay.
there. It is.
It is.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I should have started off by that. I forget that we have new members here. It's an enterprise fund,
Okay,
so that we review their expenses. If I'm around next year, I'm gonna try to review the revenues a bit more. I don't think anybody's ever even asked a question about the revenue
Oh.
since I've been here. But they do have their own revenue, and these are their expenses that we're looking at. And, they look to be, in effect, profitable. It's not called profits in an enterprise fund, but it creates some, in effect, excess reserves. And both wastewater and water had gotten to the point where they weren't able to meet their expense level without doing rate increases this past year.
I know, it came up at the select board meeting last night about our current water moratorium. And that I didn't see anything in your budget, maybe I missed it, about cleaning out, meeting some of the state the reasons for the state limits on our pumping capacity. And is that addressed somewhere in the budget?
No, so the rates, when we put a well in, the well has a certain pump curve that we have to adhere to. So you can only get a certain yield out of it before it has to be shut off and has a chance to rest. So we're only allowed to pump X amount of gallons in a 24-hour period. If we go over that, we're in violation of our withdrawal permits from the state. And that's what we're in the process right now of revamping to get those withdrawal permits up. But
But is that the new well we're investigating, or you're saying
No.
you're revamping?
so we're looking to redo our waterman act permit withdrawal permits through the DEP, but it's a very long drawn out process because you have to look and see what the impacts are going to be environmentally, not just in the immediate area, but to the other parts of the aquifer you brought out.
And is that someplace in your budget doing that work, or is that just,
So I got a grant for that.
we got a grant?
Yeah, I was able to secure a grant for that.
And is that underway?
Yep,
Okay.
no, we've been working on that for probably 8 months now.
Okay.
But it's the state doesn't move very fast with anything they do.
Well, yeah, because the new well is, right now, I'm hoping the state moves faster on our application than the new well. I think that'll happen before the new well comes on.
What's that?
The state hopefully acting favorably
Oh, yeah,
on
no.
amending our application, so the water moratorium could be lifted.
Yeah, so right now, what we're doing is when we're applying for the new well, we've wrapped everything into one. So we'll be doing, otherwise we have to do it all over again. It's a tremendous amount of work to change your withdrawal permits. So we're doing the withdrawal permit with the application for the new well. But it's a lot of work. So when we go in, the timing will be perfect. By the time we're getting all the information done to submit that to the DEP, they'll be able to submit everything all at once. Then they'll keep reviewing the application for the new well while working on the new waterman withdrawal permits.
And when we talk wells or new wells, that becomes a separate debt financing through town meeting. And so where that applies in the budget here is that on the second page, you have $874,000 worth of debt service, okay, that the treasurer will be paying back some of their debt, interest expense, et cetera, so that their debt service this year is 41% of their total expense budget. And then that's how things like new wells and new pipelines and that type of thing get financed. My question, I assume the treasurer provided these debt service numbers for you?
Yes.
Derek, I see you're on board now. Welcome. Is there any questions that you have of the water department?
None at this time, but sorry for my late attendance.
No problem. Good to see you. Anybody else?
Is there, just off the top of your head, because I know it's the enterprise fund, but that debt service Carl mentioned seems to be mostly new principal. What is that primarily going towards? So there's the
grassy hole treatment plant, the manganese.
Yeah,
that's what I, okay.
removed.
being
Yeah.
used in the Trackle Pond thing.
All right.
Yeah, to filter. So when we built the grassy hole manganese removal facility, we borrowed money and added a fourth filter out of the Trackle Pond facility to accommodate the new well. So we kind of trying to be a few steps ahead while we're in there doing stuff, just planning for the future as best as we can.
Do you or Stacy, do you do a monthly or a quarterly financial statement where you see your revenues versus your expenses? Do you
Like
know?
a year-to-date budget report?
No, I actually think the budget's probably just expenses, isn't it? What are you seeing?
But you can do a revenue, yeah, you can do a revenue and an expense budget together. I mean, each month, at least the expense budget is reviewed.
Right, I realize that, but I'm just I think of you as being a business, an enterprise fund, that, you got your revenues of $100 and your expenses of $98. And I just wondered if anybody reviews that on a monthly or at least a quarterly basis. Somebody ought to be doing it, whether it's in the functions or the.
I mean, I look at it.
Yeah, no, Stacy and I, we were just doing the revenue report. We did Cause you were asking about, year-to-date stuff for electricity, so I got a total breakdown, but we do reconciliations regularly.
Okay, and you look at
Oh,
their,
yeah.
okay.
I'm nosy.
I must admit, I've been on the finance committee here off and on for 12 years or something, and we very seldom do we talk about, you know, revenues and bottom line, and I guess if these rate increases were necessary, we still wouldn't be talking about it. So, okay,
Ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I move that the finance committee recommend approval of the water commission budget for fiscal 2026. The amount of $2,186,725 and 21 cents.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Kyle, aye.
Michael, I.
Marcia, I.
David,
Derek,
Debbie,
I.
Oops.
We have all 6 members present now. All 6 have voted in favor of recommending the water department budget as presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll do wastewater.
wastewater. All right, I had wastewater too. Some more questions on this one. So, first off, I touched on the overtime and I was looking for the year to date. I now got that. It's kind of in line with 25 or a little higher. That comes up when there's issues with the plant, right? Where the guys have to come back in. We can't not fill that void. So that overtime kind of is what it is. Again, large expense, electricity. And not only that line item, but a bunch of these line items. If I remember correctly, Carl, we kind of bumped up in 25 because we were thinking of maybe the fourth tank for the new plant was going to be online and create more expenses. So it's online,
So
but it's not where we at with it?
we moved from a 2-tank system to a 3-tank system. 4th tank is not being used. That's for future growth. That has not been fulfilled due to some of the water moratoriums, some of the other lack of new development in town. But we have moved in from a 2-tank system, which we originally had. During the upgrade, they added during the 3rd tank. So right now we're running 3 tanks.
And how full is the 3rd tank? Are we anywhere near having to go into the 4th?
We have, I believe, about 40% left available,
Okay.
30%, somewhere in that range.
So for instance, if you look at that electricity line, right, you're at 24, you're at 299 and we budgeted 364 and we're even going up to 382. They're only at 125 year to date. So you'll see that with a couple other line items. I also was looking at contract R, which is 2-4, 5th one down, a large budget item. That's up again. What is that? That's the sludge removal line item. So, when everything's treated at the end, you have a solid waste product and that has to get trucked out. And the like everything else, the costs are going up with that. If you look at line item for training, 319 and dues. Let me see, where is it?
731.
731. Those numbers, it was explained, we kind of. Why don't you speak to
Yeah,
that?
so the training seminars, like confined space entry, some of the safety courses we need to keep up with. Typically, we had been doing our training using an outsourced private company. And recently it was discovered that our insurance company, through Maya, will provide some of these training services for free. So I've reduced our outsourcing part of that, which would have been the training seminars, from 7,000 down to 4,000. And I've taken some of that and kind of moved it down into a dues and membership column.
So that's why the dues are up.
So there's a New England Water Environmental Association that does training courses and a yearly event that you can go in and take your TCHs, get a couple credits for that. There's also some industry-wide stuff that a lot of these guys came from a non-wastewater environment and don't have a lot of outside knowledge of some of the other aspects of it other than our plans. So to kind of further their knowledge base, I figured it'd be great to get them in on a membership, which they get trade magazine sent to their house, some of the new preferred methodologies of operating the plant, and using some of that to offset their other training costs if they need to keep up their TCHs, which is credit hours that they have to do every 2 years to keep their licenses up. So that the shifting of money pretty much comes to a break even, but you'll see a difference in those.
The other thing I was looking at, postage. So they had rate increases, right?
Yeah, due to our rate increases, we notified all our, what we call customers, users, and a lot of additional postage wasn't anticipated, but with this rate study we did, we wanted some notifications to go out to people, so that obviously increased. And going forward, I anticipate something like that may happen again, so I'd like to keep that postage number up as a placeholder.
What falls under the line item of telephone? It's right out of postage.
I'm
What
sorry?
falls under telephone?
So we have 16 pump stations in town. Each one of them has their own telephone associated with each station. Then we have our, plant phones and town systems, but it's, and then cell phones for each operator.
I mean, this is also an enterprise fund, right?
Exactly, yeah.
They're generating their own revenue.
A couple of my notes. You notice the debt service is up to $2 million now. $2 million for the year.
Without the debt, it's 4-1.
That's actually 56% of their budget. And that's, a lot of that is the new debt on the
Leaching field
no, I don't even think it's on the leaching field yet. It's on the expansion.
or the expansion, yeah.
In 26, we will get a little bit towards that leach field.
It will start in, okay. And I don't think it's even worth us spending a lot of time on revenue on this one, in that they did a rate increase recently, and they're still in the process of doing a reconciliation, doing a lot of work with the town administrator and the director of finance here in trying to comfort themselves that they really do know where they stand on revenues to cover this $3 million, $3.6 million of annual expense on the wastewater budget. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, just, I know on the second page, it did show like a overall of 10-11% change,
Yeah.
but, and to your point,
Yeah, driven by the debt.
right, to your point, it
Service.
was a 2.9% increase on the operating budget, 6.1 overall on payroll, so.
And I guess I should ask you the same question. You're the superintendent in wage and personnel, an administrative assistant and clerical, and labor union of 338K. What's that? 5 people, 4 people?
So if we were fully staffed, it would be fine.
5 people. But you have a vacancy?
Yes, and we're working through that now with HR.
Oh, just a quick question.
Yes,
If you
sir.
don't mind. Dave, just looking at electricity, we bumped it from 364 to 382. Right now, the data, we spent like $200,000.
No, 125.
I'm sorry, 125. It feels like
Let's see, on electricity,
126.
Oh, it's on the one, the report I gave you.
the very first.
Do you want another copy?
so I think there's a huge lag on that. There's
There's
lot
been a delay in some of the
problems.
electric bills being paid because of the issues with the solar credits. So
We did spend 300,000.
Some-
there's a lag, so we're probably at least a month behind.
Some of that stuff, yeah, there was
Okay.
at one point like a 3-month lag.
Yeah.
On some of the billing. There's something going on,
yeah.
from Eversource.
They changed all the account numbers in Eversource, and so there was problems with the billing. Things weren't being billed properly and things. So we've actually had Eversource come down and we're working it through, but it is kind of showing as a lag in electricity payments throughout multiple departments, unfortunately.
And again, I'd like to restate that this is an enterprise fund, that the sewer commissioners are responsible for, their rate structure and their expenses. We look at it for reasonableness and to have a second set of eyes. But, if their expenses go up $100,000 or down $100,000, it has nothing to do with our real estate taxes, our total, tax levy or anything else. This is all, paid by the users. And let me tell you, it's not cheap. And the user.
Brad?
Yes.
So, and another point to that electric charge. Well, just so we know, we're going into a new payment structure, which we don't know what that's gonna be. So there's a little bit of a play setter with a margin of safety. So,
All right, I move the, sorry, I move the finance committee recommend approval of the wastewater budget for fiscal 26 in the amount of $3,572,699.07.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor, Kyle, aye.
Michael, I.
Marcia, I.
David, I.
Derek,
Debbie.
I even waited so we
Wait for
didn't do it
you.
that time.
Debbie, I.
All right,
I did have a quick question. What's that other charge? It was, looks like in
13K.
Yeah, what is it?
So we have so many different categories that, that's kind of our miscellaneous drop box, if you can, for lack of better terms. There's some unforeseen things that pop up here and there. It was used a little more commonly by the prior sewer commissioner, sewer superintendent. And currently, I try not to use it. I try and put everything in its correct box. But as things fall out of that normal category, we have that as a problem.
okay, thank you. I think we're all set on wastewater. Next one we'll do is facilities. We assume that, I don't see Rob, so Mr. Hickey must be handling facilities tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hope you feel better.
Derek, have you done anything on the facilities you wanted to?
I have not, so, I will,
You want me to take the lead on this?
yes, if you don't mind, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. I looked at it briefly. Their actuals for 24 was 904K. For 25 was 953K. And this budget for 26 is 967K, a minimal increase from last year. Does somebody have the bottom line of the
1.5.
year to date?
Oh,
What are they spending?
523.
523, so they've spent just over 50% year to date. Clerical is one administrator, Wage and Personnel is the Director of Facilities, and the Labor Union is 186K. That must be 3 or 4.
We've got two full-time and, 2 part-time.
I think it's
Okay. And electricity is 148K. And the FY24 actual was 150K. What have we spent on that one?
107.
107. So that one looks like we may have a spending problem going forward,
Turn off the lights.
but
candlelight working.
I'm not gonna worry about that. The property repairs, the budget for 26 is 156K. It was 174 adjusted last year. If I remember correctly, that was probably a reserve fund transfer that went in there to cover some emergency repairs that weren't covered elsewhere.
Yeah.
Contract repairs, 116K budget. If I remember correctly, that's the type of things like the fire protection system here inspected and.
Yeah, their budget's responsible for the building mains of every building in town except water and sewer.
Yeah. Account 52,292, custodial, 60K contract. We have custodial services contracted out somewhere.
We do. We have custodial services in the fire department, police department, streets and parks.
Fire and police are paid through us? No, that's why I'm looking at the budget for facilities. So that would.
Oh, I'm sorry. Police and fire paid through the facilities department. We use a custodial service to do that.
Okay.
I apologize.
So there's 2 custodial budgets, 2 line items. But is it different buildings or why is it segregated?
Is one of them
for
maybe
60 and
custodial?
one for 17.5.
Yeah.
One of them may be custodial supplies,
Supplies.
I believe.
One's contracted, yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it's done this, but-
Rubbish removal, 16K. I know it's a small number, but we don't truck everything to the transfer station ourselves, I guess.
A lot of the outside buildings have dumpsters. That we contract through an outside vendor to provide and empty.
If the streets, trees and parks people were still here, I tell them that we have all new trucks over there. We can start moving it. In all seriousness, I don't see any problem with this budget. One of the things that I can get, let me get the right mic. The logistics of trying to run this meeting and also be up to speed on right pages. I will point out on the facilities budget, the thing that I like about it is that we had going back, I'd say to the early 20s, 2021, 22, 23, 24, we had big increases in this department. At one time, we were probably less than $300,000-400,000. And every year we'd have $100,000-200,000 increase. So for the past 3 years now, 24, 25, 26, we seem to have leveled off at about $900,000. So I think that's reasonable. That because one of the things that I always was concerned about that we were taking on too many new things. Like we still have land management, $1,000. Well, you know, at one time I think that number had gotten up to about $10,000. the facilities department was, supposed to be doing some maintenance of conservation land. Well, I'm not in favor of that type of thing. Oh, there's my conservation guy out there. All right, does anybody have any questions concerning the facilities budget? Deb or Derek, Mike, Marcia, David?
No, I'm good, thank you.
No,
I move the finance committee recommend approval of the fiscal 26 facilities management budget in the amount of $967,063.76.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor? Kyle, aye.
Michael, I.
Marcia, I.
David,
Derek, I.
Debbie, I.
600, we recommend approval of the facilities department budget as presented. The next item here is,
Pretty easy.
yeah, general operations, fuel. We had a actual of 153K. We've got a budget for the current year of 180K. And we've got a budget for next year of 140K. I suspect this might be an area where we're trying to tighten our belt and we may have a challenge to get to the 140K number.
I'd like to say that that's accurate, but what's more accurate, I think, is we go out to bid, in a regional bid every year. The price per gallon dropped, from fiscal 25. So, we feel comfortable at the $140,000 will sufficiently cover the fuel expenses for the upcoming fiscal year.
And is this just for the pumps out back here?
Yes, sir. We have diesel and gas pump. All the departments use those to fuel up.
The other question I have is, when I was leaving here 2 or 3 years ago, we were going through this, electric charging station issue. That we had one at the library and we were putting one out here, or we had one here, and nobody wanted to take responsibility for it. And I swore if I had an electric vehicle, I could pull up and plug it in and be all charged up. Has that gone forward, or is anything happening with that project?
So the charging stations are on maps, I've been told. So if somebody was wondering where a local charging station was, the stations at the library and at the townhouse would show up on a map. They're older charging stations now, so they have a more up-to-date rapid charging station, which these are not. They do get used. We do get a portion of the revenues that come from those. It's not a tremendous amount of money, very candidly. We did speak to a couple of vendors, similar to vendors that want to put some solar on the roof. We talked to some vendors about upgrading and providing the rapid charging stations. Here, potentially the library, the high school, and one of the recreation fields. And they've done some research, and the proposal I had for these companies was that they would continue to own these charging stations, but be required to do the maintenance on them. And then we'd get a portion of the revenues instead of being responsible for the upkeep of these.
And there are some controls there that, people either have to pay for it themselves.
Absolutely. It's not free.
Yeah.
It's not free. I mean, we're charging the market rate for that type of a charger. Like I said, we do get money.
And you have to put your credit card in or
Yes,
something
sir.
to use it.
We need to, we'd like to see those upgraded. I'd love to have that, like I said, done by, or funded through a company.
Wouldn't we be better off not to offer that service at all? Why do we want to be in the electric charging business?
I don't.
Okay.
What I'm trying to provide is there's an increase in the number of electric vehicles in the community. And my thought is, if a person is going to a game at the school, if they're going to the library for some event, they're going to one of the fields for the kids, games, and they have an electric car, they want to charge it for 45 minutes while they're watching their child play a game, they can do that. When
That, I hate to interrupt.
That's
but
fine.
To me, that's the type of increased services that we keep doing in this town and costing us money.
So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I guess that's why I wanted to have a company own these, maintain these, and we would just provide a parking space for them, and get a portion of the revenues that they would generate from the operation of those charging stations. I don't want to own them, I don't want to maintain them. But if there's an opportunity to offer something like that at somebody else's risk, I'm happy to take it.
And I hope, we're not doing a lot of accounting for this, are we? Because when I was leaving, they were looking, I got involved a bit, talking to people, and God, it was gonna be for the treasurer or the accountant, for somebody was gonna have to be doing this, that, and the other thing, a separate bank account, blah, blah, blah. And I said, these,
It's not worth it.
okay, that was just my, I think that was my only question on
Sure.
that. And
If I may, I actually own an electric vehicle, and from a practicality usability standpoint, the chargers that we have in place at both the library and by the fields, they charge roughly 35 cents a kilowatt hour is the rate that someone who has an electric vehicle would be looking at. They're relatively slow vis-a-vis existing chargers, even within a 10-mile radius. So from a practicality standpoint, it's just not there. And I'm someone who is a big advocate for these type of vehicles, and even I'm hard pressed to find any value add with these.
thank you. All right, Mike, you have a motion?
I move Finance Committee recommend approval of the general operations budget for fiscal 26 in the amount of 140,000, and this time, no cents.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor, Carl, I.
Michael, I.
David, I.
Marcia, I.
Derek, guy.
Debbie, I.
Finance Committee recommends approval of the $140,000 budget for fuel, the $140,000. Inspectional services.
Oh,
So this department, there's a decrease in the complete decrease because there was a reclassification that we had a community development director. That was, a position was upgraded back in fiscal 22, I believe. 21, 22. That position became vacant with some of the challenges we have with our growth. Felt as though at this
Or
point.
lack thereof.
Lack thereof, thank you. I felt as though it was, the position wasn't warranted at this point. We modified the job description back to a building commissioner, building inspector. So the salary went from 140,000 to 90.
Have we hired somebody? Do we have an inspector?
We have, he's been here a month, 6 weeks now.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
look good.
I don't have any questions. Derek, Debbie, any questions?
I'm fine.
Okay,
I move the Finance Committee recommend approval for the fiscal 26 inspectional services budget in the amount of $146,159.
Second.
having a motion and a second, all in favor, aye.
Michael, I.
Marcia, I.
David, I.
Derek, guy.
Debbie, I.
Finance Committee recommends approval of the inspectional operations budget of $146,100. 600. Okay, that takes care of our individual department budgets. The next one I said that it shouldn't take much time. We'll do a quick review or discussion concerning the revenue estimates. So to start off, I would ask members to go to the front of the book to the tab that says something about summary. Consolidated revenue expense. Part of this is routine Most of it's routine, but just to make sure that we're all on board on what we're talking about here. The first item that I would comment on is the FY '26 new growth. You'll notice that in FY '25, we had $1,720,000. That represents when we have some real growth in town, when we have some commercial growth. I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon was in there. Last year, we had $772,000. This year, we had $400,000. Well, one of the things that we're seeing is that the reluctance of the town of Kingston to allow any commercial development shows up on this line. Now, when I say allow, what I'm talking about is one group or another standing up and hollering or rejecting any kind of commercial development that we talk about. If we even think back to the Amazon facility, or at the other end of town, the other one, the delivery company. UPS building, even the marijuana thing. There's always somebody fighting it. And as long as we fight that, us residential homeowners will pay all the taxes because we don't bring any commercial growth in. The assessor has assured us that she's comfortable with the $400,000. When you put I put a new deck on my house last year, so I'm included in that $771,000.
And your new car.
Well, that's another place. When we get there, we'll talk about that. So that's the first item. The next item is the state aid line. You'll notice that it was the actuals of $7,007,000 in '24, $7,202,000 in '25, and we're proposing $7,300,000, which I think is very reasonable. As Keith indicated before, we'll probably see the first pass of this number maybe tomorrow or Friday. For those who don't know, the state goes through a budgeting process where you have about 4 iterations, and the first one comes out with the so-called governor's budget. And so if that came out and it was $7,800,000, I suspect the town administration might consider doing something different on that line item.
And just so you're aware, Mr. Chair, the governor had indicated a 2.2% increase in state revenues. So we've adjusted the $7.3 million by the 2.2%, upping that number to $7.36 million. We're going to be discussing revenues with the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday night as part of the budget discussion, and if there are changes in revenues, the finance committee has those changes.
I think I would reiterate, as just one member of the finance committee, I like to see the revenues conservative.
And they will be.
That we don't ever want to get into the point where we overestimate revenues and compound the problems that we have with budgets. Then I'm going to skip down to towards the bottom because it's all related. Towards the bottom of the page, you'll see the state aid charges on the when we get the state aid receipts, we also get state aid charges, and they have been $512K, $572, and we're budgeting $620. The major items on the charges are the charter schools that when we send somebody or somebody from our town goes to a charter school, we get charged back on this line item. So for instance, this is in your book, but for last year, it was $339,000 of the 573 was for school choice sending tuition, charter school sending tuition. So that's always a concern. The other big item here is to go back up your local receipts. You have a listing of local receipts in the package here. I went through and summarized it the way I like to look at it. For the 26 budget is at $6,650,000. Well, $2,450,000 of this is for the motor vehicle excise tax. So that's by far the biggest item. The next biggest item is the ambulance revenue. That's $1.5 million. The next item is investment income. That's $550K. When I was first treasurer here, we were getting almost no investment income, that the banks were paying us, 0.2 if I was lucky. And then towards the end of my, we had gotten it up to 3.5% or so. I think maybe it's up now more like 5% or so. So that's something that's totally dependent upon cash flow and the rate dependent. One of the things about when I kind of indicate the investment income is that sometimes we get cash flow benefits that you don't really think of when you're doing a major project. A lot of times you won't have to actually be funding the payment back of that until you get your debt in place, especially for the wastewater and water treatment, water department projects. That you spend the money and you get paid from the eventual debtor or the debt service people, but you don't have to stop paying it back for a couple of years. So that can have a big impact. Transfer station stickers are over 500K. Cannabis is 250K. So those are the types of items that are in the other local receipts. I guess the last item that I wanted to talk about here on the revenue is, if we go back to the top of the page there, so-called levy. You're working down to the maximum allowable levy. Levy is nothing more than the real estate taxes that are paid by us residents and paid by the commercial people, commercial businesses. So that you can see back in FY24, the maximum allowable levy was the 43,358,000. We had excess levy capacity of 2,966,000. That meant that we were only taxing 40,392,000. The net there, we were taxing 40,392,000, and we had an effective reserve of 2,965,000. We go to 25, okay, and we had to use up over $2 million of that in effect to cover the operating budget, much of which was from the schools. So that the net increase, the net there was 44,279,000. So the increase in the levy that was being billed to real estate people was $3,887,000, or 9.6%. So when you see people concerned about their real estate tax bills, that's an example of where it comes from. Now let's go to 2026. The budget that we're looking at here as a so-called balanced budget that the administration has been great enough to come out with the 4% that we in the selectmen challenged them to do, gets us down to excess levy capacity of $10,000. Nothing. It's gone. Okay. What that will result in, bottom line, is about a 5% increase across the board, one more time to real estate taxpayers. Now, I've taken it a step further. Mr. Pike has said, okay, let's look at what it would be if we plugged in the budgets that currently exist, that are the budgets that currently exist at the local schools and at the Silver Lake region. The local schools, we know what the number is. They've given it to us. It's $1.7 million or whatever it is, above and beyond the 4%. The Silver Lake Regional, we don't have assessment numbers, but I have estimated that based upon where they stand right now, our increase next year from Silver Lake would be $1.5 million or 9%. Okay, so I plug all this into this schedule, and it would say we have a deficit of $3,935,000. What that means is if the Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee or the school committees, whoever, decided that we were going to go for a Proposition 2.5 override, it would have to be $3,935,000. And what would that look like to taxpayers next year? It would be a 12.5% increase, okay, on the average tax bill. I find that unacceptable. Now, will we see changes? I don't know. That gets me through my review of the revenues. Does anybody, any member, have any questions concerning the revenues?
And how do we increase them?
I just want to add to what Carl presented, that number, that 12.5, that 3.9 million is literally for us to survive to June of 2026, right? At which point we're back here, sitting here in a very warm room when it is very cold outside next January, talking about how to plug the fiscal 27 hole, where the trajectory is not going to be any different. So the path is.
I agree that, again, if the only way you get away from not having those issues is when you have budgets of 3 to 4%. And that's assuming that you have new growth.
Yep.
And new local revenues.
Correct.
That will take you above the 2.5 to maybe 4%. With that, did you have a question, Derek?
Yeah. Can I throw a hypothetical out there? So the Silver Lake comes back. That budget gets approved at an increase. We go to an override vote. The override vote fails. Are we responsible then to find that money elsewhere within Kingston because of the nature of the way that district operates?
If Silver Lake, if the other two towns accepted the Silver Lake budget, then we would have to live with it. And so it would not be a pretty picture if the three towns go for overrides and Kingston rejects it and the other two accepted it. It would be a problem.
Okay.
So I would say yes, the money would have to be found somewhere.
All right, thanks.
Okay, with that kind of gets me into, I think, my last item here is an update on the education budgets. Now, I know that at least 3 of us were at the meeting last Tuesday night with the 2 school committees. I found it somewhat less than inspiring that I think it was made very clear by selectmen from the 3 towns, by town administrators, that the budgets as proposed are unacceptable. I believe that there did not seem to be a lot of impetus there as to what is going to happen. So as we just said, the local schools right now have a budget that is $1.7 million above and beyond the 4% that we have suggested they have. One of the things that, and the actual, I think this is important, that the actual budget first looked at for the local schools was $17.2 million. That's an 18% increase over last year. From that, they've subtracted $300K for anticipated circuit breaker reimbursement and tier 1 reduction. So that's gotten them down to 16.9 million, which is a 15.8% increase, okay? What we were looking for at the 4% means that we were looking for a 600K versus the 2,000,003 that increase would be. So that the bottom line is $1,000,007. But it's important to recognize that the first pass of that budget was an 18% increase. The current pass of that budget is a 16% increase. So I don't want to hear people talking about the bottom line $1,000,007 as being a 12% increase or whatever it is. That the real increase is 15.8%, and you take away the 4% that we think is reasonable, they're still at a 12% problem. It's a 12% problem, not a 12% increase. Comprende, everyone? Okay. Silver Lake, let's look at update Silver Lake here. Silver Lake's first pass of the budget is a 13.8% increase over last year. From that, they get somewhat of a windfall. They are subtracting an estimated 2.5 million from circuit breaker. And for those who don't understand, circuit breaker is nothing more than what the state reimburses for you for some special ed students above and beyond a fixed amount. That comes down to a 7.5% increase. So that's the increase that I talked about before. And if we compare that with our 4%, they're comparing it with their 2%. That's where they come up with, their school committee requested a 2%. So they come up with a $2,180,000 over the targeted 2%. When I break this all down on made some assumptions concerning assessment, I think I said 55% of the problem becomes Kingston, as 55% of the school, that they would have an assessment to us of about $1.5 million above and beyond last year. And I want to say it's about 800,000 would be 4%. So it's somewhere around 700,000 would be the overage. Another way of summarizing this, I talked about close to $4 million potential override. I would look at it as the local schools being potentially $1.7 million, Silver Lake assessment being potentially $800K, police being essentially $1 million, fire and benefits another $500,000. That's how I get to the $4 million. That and I guess I keep emphasizing that to show that that's probably the worst case. But if we don't see some hard look at these school budgets, and I don't know what else to say, but that's an update. Oh, the schools, they both, Silver Lake and local schools, I don't think they have another meeting until early February. And so I believe that these numbers are about as good as anybody's gonna get prior to March 1st, March 15th. And that's why I think I have them on the schedule for maybe even April. Yeah, I had them on the schedule for April 2nd. I may try to move that up to March 19th, but I think it's foolish to move it any further. Comments, questions from the finance committee members?
I'm just curious, like, it looks like on February 5th, I'll be a lot of the departments that I'm taking a lead on. How do you go about reaching out to them, or how do you, what do you do? Send them an email?
That's what I would probably do. You have the emails that Rhonda sent out to us.
She had a name. I didn't see emails, but maybe emails are on there.
Yes, they were, but she'll send you another one.
Okay, thank you so much.
And I had started to look at specific suggestions for Marcia to get involved here. So I thought that maybe she could work with Mike on Council on Aging, work with Deb on Recreation, work with David on Fire, work with Carl on Police, and then again, maybe work with Carl, might have her do these as an independent looker on Collector Treasurer. But those are just my ideas to get started. Any other questions or comments? I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Move the finance committee adjournance meeting of January 22nd, 2025, 7:53 p.m.
Second,
All in favor, Carl, I.
Michael, I.
Marcia, I.
David, I.
Derek, I.
Debbie, I.
Thank you, everyone.